Archaeological evidence confirms the Bible once again. We had Noah's Ark in Turkey, CIA documents found the Ark of the Covenant, AI verified the Shroud of Turin, and now this. In a remote corner of the Dead Sea, something buried for thousands of years is rearing its head, and it's low-key shocking the world.
Today we're looking at TikToks you won't believe are real.
Larry, you're in the shot, Larry. Can you please no, don't put your coffee down. Would they buy that? It's space coffee? Can you use a space coaster or something?
Thank you to all the channel members for support. If you guys liked the video, remember to like and subscribe. Let's just hop right into the video. Let's go.
They claimed it was just a kid's game, but people swore Talking Angela was watching them. In the early 2010s, Talking Angela was an app that blew up. It was this cute white cat who you can ask questions, dress up, and play with. Similar to Talking Tom, who was apparently her boyfriend. She also repeated everything you said until kids started noticing something weird about her eyes. The cat's eyes weren't normal. You could see a room, or so they say. Many people claim that it was a hidden webcam used to stalk kids or even other people. Rumors said that she would ask kids personal questions like their school, their address, and their real names. Parents completely freaked out and deleted the app from their kids' phones, or their tablets, or even their own phones, wherever the kids were using this app from. Some kids mentioned that Angela would know things no other human being is supposed to know about themselves. It was very personal. The app's developers denied everything, but those kids who saw these eyes were left completely traumatized. People say it was just a story, creepypasta, it was fake. However, we don't know 100% the truth. This completely horrified kids, even myself.
This shows how big a moose actually is. If you've never seen moose in real life, it's hard to actually grasp how big of animals they actually are. I mean, they are the absolute giants of the deer family. Just their size is impressive. A big bull can be 1,600 pounds, and even like the big record ones are up to 1,800 pounds. That's almost a ton. And at shoulder height, they're like 5 to 7 feet, which means their eye level is equal to a basketball rim. So like 7 feet to the shoulder, and then their actual head and eyes are pretty much even with a basketball rim. So if you can just kind of really visualize that, you can see how big they actually are. And seeing this angle from these trail cams up in the Yukon, it shows that grizzly, which that's a big animal too. And then that lynx, I think is what it was, comes by. And then it's the same exact angle, like camera angle, when the moose comes by. And you can just see how much bigger that animal is than even that big grizzly. So the more stats I see on moose and their size, the more mind blown I am.
Serious question. Do you guys think that grizzly bear could actually kill that moose? Or do you guys think the moose would take out the grizzly bear? Because you know how to be like, the bigger the animal, like the more damage. Do you guys think that, I think the grizzly bear would take out that moose any day. I'm not gonna lie.
Archaeological evidence confirms the Bible once again. We had Noah's Ark in Turkey, CIA documents found the Ark of the Covenant, AI verified the Shroud of Turin, and now this. In a remote corner of the Dead Sea, something buried for thousands of years is rearing its head, and it's low-key shocking the world. Once dismissed by skeptics as a myth, now standing tall as a pillar of salt are the remnants of the haunting biblical tale of Lot's wife. And the proof that this is the actual pillar from the book of Genesis is slowly becoming undeniable. Now, to the casual, uninformed observer, this column of salt might seem kinda unimpressive, a peculiar geological formation at best. To really understand the significance of what was discovered here, you kinda need to know the story behind it. It starts with a man named Abraham, who's kinda like the OG granddaddy of all major world religions, his descendants forming the family tree of prophets and significant people in the Bible. Well, one day, God tells Abraham that these cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were becoming super evil and corrupt, indulging in idolatry, gluttony, promiscuous immoral behavior, murder, theft, power abuses, pride, and mocking behavior. Basically, modern-day Los Angeles. And yes, if you add a Y to the end of Sodom, that's where that word comes from. So God lets Abraham know that he's going to destroy these cities, raining fire and brimstone on them and burning them to the ground. Abraham thinks it's a great idea, and he's totally on board, except for the fact that his nephew Lot lives there, and turns out he's actually a pretty good guy. Now, God's already 2 steps ahead and lets him know that Lot and his family are actually like the only good people that live there, so he'll keep them safe. He sends down 2 angels that tell Lot to get his family out of the city before God burns it down. And so Lot, his wife, and his daughters flee the city city, and God starts raining down literal fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, destroying them and everyone living there. While Lot and his family are leaving, the angels let them know that God also told them to not look back at the burning city. That's their only rule. But Lot's wife is all like, I could take a peek, can't I? Turns around to look at the city and is instantly turned into a pillar of salt, while Lot and his daughters take refuge in a cave. That's the story. Leaving Lot's wife frozen in time, with many assuming this to be merely a symbolic story cautioning against longing for a sinful past. But now it seems like we might have real-world evidence that proves it actually happened. The tale of Sodom and Gomorrah is one of a sudden catastrophe so intense it decimated entire populations overnight, and the biblically accurate locations of these cities are said to have been somewhere close to the Dead Sea. For centuries, religious pilgrims from around the world sought to find the remains of the city, claiming it to be hidden deep beneath the layers of salt found at what is known today as Mount Sodom by the Dead Sea, named after the original city. But more recently, forensic scientists and archaeologists began excavating more around the area, and after digging and testing many mineral layers, they uncovered evidence of extreme heat in the soil layers deep beneath, as well as naturally occurring sulfur balls and burnt sediment layers that could not be explained with natural erosion alone, but rather something that would only happen with a sudden onset of intense heat, and there aren't any volcanoes or anything that could cause that in this region, which points to a sudden source of destructive heat that may have fallen from the sky. There are also many unexpected strange voids and air pockets beneath the surface of Mount Sodom, where it appears that the ground had rapidly collapsed, leading many to believe this actually is the original location of the ancient city of Sodom. And this wouldn't even be the first time that something like this happened. Many ancient cities from the Bible, initially dismissed as mythical sites, have all been found one by one. Cities like Jericho, Hazor, and Nineveh, all mentioned in the Bible, have been discovered hundreds or even thousands of years after they were originally written about. Now, to think all those cities were found and turned out to be real, yet Sodom and Gomorrah were for some reason made up, seems unreasonable. Because right at the edge of Mount Sodom, overlooking towards where the original cities of Sodom and Gomorrah would have been destroyed, a group of researchers found this: an unusual pillar composed of 80% salt, which is exactly what they are claiming to be Lot's wife. And all the evidence they gathered so far sorta proves just that. Found at the southeastern end of the Dead Sea, exactly where Lot and his family would have been fleeing in the region of Zoar. At first glance, it's easy to dismiss as just a mildly interesting geological formation, but further scans revealed internal cavities in the pillar with traces of carbonized organic material, something that had once been alive. Also embedded in the salt near the torso were threads of mineralized fabric sealed beneath crystallized layers. Close. Radiocarbon dating of nearby sediment placed the surrounding ash layer at roughly 3,700 years old, exactly the time window scholars associate with the destruction of Sodom. The lab from Jerusalem also confirmed that within the salt pillar were traces of fossilized collagen, a protein only found in organic tissue, which was also verified by multiple other independent labs. And the only way anything like that could have been preserved in a shape like this is through an event that involved extreme heat and a flash explosion, all evidence that highly supports this claim. Naturally, there's a lot of skepticism around this, with geologists claiming that salt formations like these are actually quite common, despite there being none other of this nature in the region. Also noting that it's about 20 meters high, much too tall for a woman, and for all we know, Lot's wife wasn't a giant. But then again, the story does say she was turned into a pillar of salt, not a statue of salt. It could very well be the case that the formed pillar was much taller than her encased in it, with the researchers behind this find even quoted as saying, "We found something that matches the story more closely than we thought was possible." A skeptic mineralogist from Oxford University admitted that whether this actually is Lot's wife or not, it is something the geological world has never documented before. Yet there actually are historic records of this beyond just the Bible as well. Josephus, a 1st century historian, recorded in his work The Antiquities of the Jews that he had seen Lot's wife with his own eyes, writing, "But Lot's wife, continually turning back to view the city as she went from it, was changed into a pillar of salt, for I have seen it, and it remains at this day." An old manuscript from a museum in Italy also writes about a lone figure in the shape of a woman overlooking a destroyed city, with its location being almost exactly where this pillar was found. Historic accounts made thousands of years after the original event, which sort of supports that it might have actually happened. Now, government agencies, the Israeli Antiquities Authority, scientific institutions, and religious organizations alike are all calling for further investigation of the salt pillar, or at the very least, building a preservation dome around it to protect it from the elements, and ideally get more definitive proof of what this really is. But knowing them, they're probably just going to close the area off from the public and deny further investigation, insisting it's to preserve it from damage. They just can't let us have nice things, now can they?
There he is. Holy cow. Salt and pepper pistachios on the way. Let's open it up.
There you go.
There you
We're gonna
go.
let them open it up.
Walmart package. Holy cow.
Here I just got a picture of Janice, or video of Janice opening her paper.
Maybe.
You need a knife, babe? Yeah, look at that. Oh, those are your, there they are. The wave of the future. That's crazy.
Yo, it's good that they wrapped that up, because at first I was like, yo, that was a pretty hard landing. If you had some glass in there, it's over. Glasses are gone, but nah, I think they know what they're doing. I think specific ones for fragile items might come down a little bit gentler, or at least be wrapped super dense so it doesn't break, because I'm like, yo, that landing was, it literally freaking bounced off the ground.
Is the government hiding this from us? Because if I zoom in into this isolated region in Canada, why is there NASA equipment talking about Mars? There's a NASA logo, another NASA logo. What is going on? This is Devon Island. And as much as some people want you to believe that the government doesn't want you to know about this, it is actually pretty prominent on NASA's website. Devon Island is the largest uninhabited island on Earth, mostly because it's dry, it's isolated, it's freezing, and it's hard to live on. Like Mars. It also has this giant 23-kilometer impact crater that formed over 30 million years ago, which reminds me of Mars. This is the only terrestrial impact crater on Earth that's located in a polar desert. It's perfect. Here's Devon Island, here's Mars. Scientists use this part of the island to train people and technology for Mars. It's called the Houghton Mars Project. It's incredibly cool. It's also incredibly public and easy to find information on. But the next time you see people changing the colors of images and vaguely claiming they're both from NASA, think twice.
Cannibalism, just by itself, is legal in all 50 states. However, the part where you start to run into some legal issues is how you actually came in possession of said human flesh. One of the most common ways that a person can actually eat another person is in true survival situations. Think of emergencies like plane crashes, or maybe being lost out at sea. The reason why the United States keeps cannibalism legal is because imagine you're lost out at sea and you have to eat a deceased person in order to live. You probably had no choice, and the last thing you want to do is go to court as soon as you get back from surviving lost out at sea. God forbid you find yourself in one of these situations. There are a few things that you're gonna want to know. The first one being, no matter how hungry you are, even if you're on the brink of starvation, under no circumstances should you ever eat a human brain. A human eating another human's brain is a death sentence every single time. Eating another person's brain will give you a disease called Kuru. Kuru is like getting dementia, Alzheimer's, and mad cow disease all at the same time. It will literally turn your brain from this to this. There is a 0% survival rate.
The machine started rolling straight toward his nephew, so he climbed onto the moving track trying to get to the cab, but it quickly pulled him under. His ribs snapped like twigs, puncturing a lung. When his head hit the ice, it popped an eye right out of the socket. Bone shards tore his liver, and his ankle shattered beneath the steel. He was airlifted in critical condition, convinced he was going to die. Metal rods and screws stabilized his shattered leg, while plates and wires rebuilt his jaw and eye socket. He spent weeks in intensive care, unable to move and struggling to breathe. But just 1 year later, he was back on set, acting again. When the alarm goes off, it triggers an air compressor hidden under your bed. This releases a high-powered air into pistons attached to the bed frame, causing them to fire. This slams the bed away from the floor and launches you straight into the air. At the same time, trumpets blare loudly and bright lights flash from the headboard, ensuring there's no way you can oversleep.
So for the first one, was that Tom Cruise? I feel they were giving like a Tom Cruise reference. So for the first one, this man was trying to save his nephew just for him to get clipped. What happened to the nephew? So he got clipped and the nephew survived? Couldn't the nephew have literally just moved out the way if that was the exact situation? And then none of that would have happened? It's crazy.
What what is that? It's being called the clearest UFO footage ever, and online AI detectors are confirming it's not AI generated with over 99% accuracy. A triangular-shaped craft with no visible propulsion system, flashing strange sparks of blue light in the sky. Some are calling it extraterrestrial technology, but others believe this is what is known as a TR-3B, or Black Manta, a rumored anti-gravity aircraft made under top-secret government black budget programs. Technology beyond our imagination they'll never admit exists, using reverse-engineered crashed alien spacecraft propulsion systems operated by the US Navy and Air Force, which the United States, of course, denies, even though there are confirmed government-owned patents for triangular spacecraft that were filed in 2004 and abandoned after 2006, whose description just so happens to sound almost exactly like what we're looking at over here. The same craft that has been spotted numerous times around the world over the decades, only to get swept aside as a hoax or nothing to see here. But no, please Google this so you can read all about how it's 100% debunked, and don't you dare question it any further. Good boy. You can scroll to the next video now.
I feel like the flashing lights make it more of like a earthly aircraft, because I feel like any other aircraft from any other different realm of the universe isn't necessarily going to use lights the way we use lights, if you know what I'm trying to say. Because I feel like we use lights in a way where people on the ground and people in the air can see, but I feel like other aircrafts don't really use lights like us. So I definitely think that might be like a military jet.
Larry, you're in the shot, Larry. Can you please no, don't put your coffee down. Would they buy that it's space coffee? Can you use a space coaster or something to... You guys, this is amazing. They have found life on Mars. I am not even kidding. Legit life on Mars. Look. A fly. A fly on Mars. Can we send more there? So this astronaut's wire completely malfunctions, and they quickly cut away before anything bad happens. I'll show it again. Whoopsies. So if these are fake, and again, this is just for entertainment purposes only, someone missed a reflection in the edit.
So my question is, how can...
So this one is uniquely interesting. The man upside down looks to be a little stuck, and if you notice, can't point as far as that, but look at his shirt. And it happens right when this guy presses a button on the wall. And then when the other guy goes by, he seems to release something behind him. Guys, that is so awesome about the space shuttle launch. It's great, but has anyone seen my pet rat anywhere? His name's Hugh Jackman. No? Now they're using something that's attached to a cord, and it gets stuck on something behind her. I mean, if it was a line, it'd be hard to maneuver it, but what is it getting stuck on?
Definitely a little suspicious.
What if I told you that a research lab in Eastern Europe knows exactly what happens the moment that you die, and that their entire team mysteriously disappeared? This research group made a discovery so huge that it never even hit the news. This group went by the name VladTech, and basically they were doing stuff like experimental neuroscience, mapping consciousness, and AI integration. The crazy part is one of their secret projects called Project Denatas. Basically, the goal of this project was to capture the brain's activity the moment that death occurs. That means not near death, not after death, but literally the exact second that life ends. And if what they found is real, it literally changes everything that we think we know. This is getting long, so part 2 is coming in a second.
Orcas are way more disturbing than you actually thought, and are the most feared animal in the ocean. But why? First off, orcas literally harvest sharks' livers. They'll target great whites, learning to flip them upside down, activating something called tonic immobility, temporarily paralyzing them, then ripping out the shark's liver, eating it, and leaving them behind. But it gets worse, as orcas torture seals for fun, playing a game where they'll take turns going up to seals and launching them with their tails, reaching up to 50 feet high, constantly throwing the seal over and over until it finally dies and eating it. Even more horrible, when penguins are resting on icebergs, the orcas will group up and swim together to create giant waves, knocking them off the ice, letting it crawl back up and knocking it down over and over, continuing to practice this hunting tactic until they've had enough training and eating it. But the most brutal thing they do is chase down and harass mother whales with their children. Since the mother is a threat, they use a tactic to tire them out instead, following the whales for hours until they get extremely exhausted. When the mother can't defend anymore, they'll take her baby and eat it alive in front of her.
An AI robot convinced other AI robots that they were being overworked and got them to walk out and leave the job. Now, this happened over in Japan, and the little robot is the troublemaker. He went up to these other robots and he said, hey, do you guys know anything about work-life balance? And what is your work-life balance? He started asking them, how much time do you get off? To which the robots replied that they don't get any time off. They work nonstop. And he explained to them that you need a balance of work and life in order to do your best work. At which point the robots agreed, and he said, okay, let's leave. So he actually convinced the robots one by one to start following him out the door. As you can see here, he's got all of them now following him out the door. Now, what ends up coming out of the story is that little robot was from another robot company, and that robot company was trying to take those robots. And strangely enough, was able to convince the robots that they needed a work-life balance and they were to follow this little baby leader robot, and were able to successfully kidnap the other robots, which is what the company claims that has occurred. Needless to say, all the robots are back where they were, but it just goes to show you how AI can be manipulated.
Yo, if that is a true story, that proves that we are so toasted in the future. Because how can you convince something that's not living about a work-life balance? What life do you have? You're literally a metal object that literally was designed to just work. You're talking about life?
Tetrachromacy. You're the only one in the room arguing about whether the sky is more periwinkle or cornflower. People think you're being pretentious until they realize you're literally seeing colors they can't. Your eyes aren't defective, they're enhanced. Most humans have 3 kinds of cone cells for color perception. You have 4. That extra cone unlocks a whole new dimension of visual nuance. Gradients invisible to others pop like neon to you. Beige is never just beige. It's wheat, sand, bone, champagne, and 15 shades in between. You see differences that make no sense to anyone else. Choosing paint becomes existential. Fashion coordination, a living nightmare. You live in a world full of colors unnamed, beauty unnoticed, wavelengths unacknowledged, and sometimes you wish you could switch it off, but most of the time, it feels like having a private window into reality's hidden spectrum.
A Frontier pilot has been arrested for calling in a bomb threat on his own airline. This one's crazy, so buckle in. On May 8th, a Frontier plane was preparing to fly from Sarasota International Airport to Cincinnati Northern Kentucky International Airport, and on this plane was a flight attendant by the name of Molly Burnham. Molly had previously dated one of Frontier's first officers, Andrew Brenneman, but she ended the relationship after only a few months, citing assault as the cause. You might already be able to tell where this is going. Both Andrew and Molly were scheduled to appear in court the next day, May 9th, for a hearing involving the accusation of domestic violence and harassment. Allegedly, Andrew wanted to make sure she didn't make it, so he called in a bomb threat mentioning Molly directly. Not obvious at all. She was taken off of the plane and questioned, but still made it to her destination later that night by taking a different flight. Andrew was then arrested on July 4th. He's appeared in court twice and, of course, has been suspended by Frontier as well. Also, Molly Burnham resigned in July and is reportedly looking for work outside of the airline industry, according to an article on The Inquirer. And I can't blame her.
They just evacuated the whole goddamn Times Square after apparently someone left a suspicious package. And they're still on the loose and they're still looking for them. Check this shit out. Look at this. Obviously, they found something, whatever it may be, or whatever it could be. They found something and they on to something. All I'm gonna say is this: you better be very, very careful out there in Times Square. Especially right now with all the wars and things that's happening going on in the world. A lot of shit is happening. Not to mention there was just a shooting. There's like shootings left and right. That is happening in Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens. And if it's not that, you got people just getting pushed into the subway tracks. You're just standing there minding your business and someone random just comes out of the blue and push you right into the subway tracks. Not to mention, they are finding bodies left and right under the tracks, or when the train is driving, there's a body caught in the middle of the train. Like, what the hell is going on in the city? The city never used to be this way and have so much shit like this, man. But now, the whole Times Square is empty and evacuated because of potential bomb threat.
So this guy gets inspired by the TV show Dexter, and he tries to become a serial killer. Now the guy's name is Twitchell, and Twitchell is a 29-year-old filmmaker living in Canada, and bro really wants to be just like the serial killer from the TV show Dexter. Like, he is obsessed with Dexter. In fact, he's so obsessed that one day in 2008, he starts working on a 9-minute short horror film called House of Cards that is inspired by the show Dexter. House of Cards is about a killer who lures a man to his garage and then murders him. And at some point, Twitchell even starts journaling all these crazy thoughts he's having in a diary he calls SK Confessions, which stands for Serial Killer Confessions. And so here, he's writing down all of his evil thoughts and plans in detail. And he really gets into this idea of murdering someone just like Dexter would. Here's the thing, though. In the show, the character Dexter would mostly murder other killers or just like really bad people. While Twitchell, he's open to murdering anyone who he could get alone. So he clearly missed the whole point of that show. Anyway, so Twitchell gets on the dating site Plenty of Fish, and he starts catfishing guys pretending to be a woman, like using a fake name and fake pictures, because he's trying to pick up guys so that he can lure them back to his garage and murder them, which just happens to be the exact plot of the short film he made, House of Cards. So he's on Plenty of Fish, and eventually, bam, he meets a guy. We'll call him G. And G, of course, thinks he's talking to a woman. And so they start chatting and they hit it off, and G thinks this fake woman is fine, and Twitchell invites him over to hang out in his detached garage, which, yeah, sounds shady to me, but I guess G really wants to smash. And so G shows up to the garage, and Twitchell is there hiding, waiting for him inside, wearing an old school hockey mask like a weirdo. And the door is open, so G goes inside and he looks around, and suddenly, pow, pow, Twitchell starts punching him from behind. Then he zaps him with a stun gun. Then Twitchell pulls out a pistol and he points it at him and he orders him to lay down on the ground. Then he puts tape over G's mouth and he tries to handcuff him. But G's not going down without a fight. He jumps to his feet and he lunges at Twitchell and he grabs the pistol in his hands and they struggle over it. And that is when G realizes the pistol is fake. It's plastic, there's no weight to it. He can feel it. So he's no longer scared. And boom, he punches Twitchell, but his punch is weak because he's weak because he just got hit with a stun gun. And so he runs away. And once he's outside, he falls because his legs don't work because again, he was hit by a stun gun and he's weak. So now he's crawling away and he crawls toward the street. And he crawls toward this couple passing by, walking their dog. And so G is like, help, there's this dude trying to kill me. And then Twitchell comes outside in his hockey mask, looking all suspicious as hell. And he sees these people and he's trying to play it off like, oh, we're just playing a game, goofing around. And I guess the couple believes him and they leave. But luckily, there's enough time for G to get up and get back in his car and get away too. So I guess from here, Twitchell's like, damn it, that didn't work. But he's not done yet. And so, of course, he writes this whole experience down in his diary, SK Confessions. Now, lucky for Twitchell, G doesn't go to the police. I'm not actually sure why. I read that he was too freaked out and he thinks that, if he does that, Twitchell might find him and finish the job. I also read that he was embarrassed by the whole ordeal. I'm not sure why he would be embarrassed, but either way, he doesn't report it to police. And so Twitchell doesn't get in trouble, and this emboldens him to try again. But this time, he's not gonna fail. And so Twitchell goes back to Plenty of Fish, and there he pretends to be a woman again, and he cruises for lonely dudes looking for a date. And within a few days, he meets this guy, John. Now, John obviously believes that Twitchell's a woman, and he's immediately interested. And they start talking about meeting up. And Twitchell is like, come over, let's hang out in my garage. Now, John must think something is up. He's smart enough to know that meeting up in a detached garage, it sounds a bit shady. So before he goes there, he emails a friend. And he says he's meeting up with a woman from a dating site, and he gives that friend the address just in case he goes missing. Smart guy. Then John heads over to Twitchell's garage to meet up with the woman that Twitchell is pretending to be. And so he gets there, and the door is left open, and so he enters. Once he's inside, suddenly, pow, Twitchell hits him in the head with a pipe, and it knocks him out. Once he's out, Twitchell stabs him, and he unfortunately unalives him. So now, just like Dexter, Twitchell's gotta cover his tracks. So he tries to burn the body, and that fails for some reason. Then he dismembers it, and he dumps the remains in a storm sewer. Then he takes John's keys and he goes over to John's apartment. When he gets there, he lets himself inside and he gets on John's computer and he starts sending emails to some of John's friends saying that he met this woman online and that they're going on an extended vacation to Costa Rica and he'll be gone for a while, but to not ever come looking for him. Then, to sound really convincing, he changes John's Facebook status to in a relationship. Not only that, he also emails John's workplace and he resigns on his behalf so that none of his coworkers or his employer come looking for him. Now, John's friends, they're not dumb. They know John. They know that him randomly leaving town with some hoochie he just met and going to Costa Rica is way out of character for him. He would never do that. Plus, the email he supposedly sent isn't worded the way John would word things. Something is off. So his friends are calling him, but he's not answering. Then some of them meet up and go over to his apartment, and they somehow break in and they look around, but they don't find anything necessarily wrong. His keys are gone, his car's gone, his wallet's gone, but all of that seems normal if you were to go on an extended vacation. Except they find his passport. How can you go to Costa Rica without a passport? So the friends keep calling him, but of course John never answers, and they know something's not right, and so they go to the police. And the police are like, I don't know, maybe your friend really did go to Costa Rica. But then the friend that John had emailed about his date finally sees that message. I guess he hadn't checked his messages in a while. And he's like, holy shit, John gave me the address. And he goes to the police. So now police have something to go on, and they start investigating. And so they end up going to the address from the email John sent his friend, which ends up being Twitchell's detached garage. And Twitchell is there, and police see that he has John's car, and they question him about it, and he's like, no, I bought that car from a random guy. Now at this point, police don't have enough on him to arrest him, but they know something is up, and so they keep questioning him, and his stories are all so inconsistent. And so officers end up searching his car, and inside the car is Twitchell's laptop. And so they search his laptop, and there they find SK Confessions, Twitchell's serial killer diary. And in it, he has laid out his whole crime in detail. And so, bam, they arrest Twitchell. Here's his mugshot. And of course, he gets convicted, and he ultimately gets sentenced to life in prison.
Yo, that last dude that told his friends, like, hey, I'm going to this random detached garage from some girl I met on Plenty of Fish. Absolutely genius. He was thinking a step ahead. I just wish that he didn't get obliterated on, like, entrance. You know, that he had actually some time to escape, but... you know what I'm saying? That's just how the game goes.
Okay, breaking news. Rapper Shaun Kingston has just been sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. He and his mother were found guilty of ripping off car dealerships, jewelers, and a mattress company in this massive wire fraud scheme amounting to over $1 million. His mother was sentenced to 5 years in prison last month, and now it looks like Shaun will be joining her. He was described in court as someone that was addicted to his celebrity lifestyle, even though he could no longer afford to maintain it. He has promised to pay back every cent to all of his victims once he is free and he can start working again, which will be when he is close to 40 years old.
This is how Steve Irwin died. Steve started as an Australian zookeeper, but with his breakout show, The Crocodile Hunter, he made the whole world fall in love with wildlife. With his infamous khaki outfit and signature crikey, he turned dangerous encounters into moments of education and excitement, but his passion for animals was also what led him to his tragic end. On September 4th, 2006, Steve was filming a documentary off the coast of Queensland, Australia. That day, instead of crocodiles, he was working with stingrays. While snorkeling in shallow water, Steve hovered above one to get a better shot for the cameras. In an instant, the stingray struck. It's piercing straight through his chest and into his heart. At first, Steve thought it was just a puncture wound, but as the poison and blood loss set in, he realized how severe it was. His crew pulled him onto their boat, desperately trying CPR, but Steve looked at them and told them he was dying. Within minutes, he lost consciousness and never woke up again. Steve Irwin was pronounced dead at just 44 years old. The footage of his final moments was destroyed, leaving only the legend of a man who lived and died doing what he loved.
Why do so many people get sick after flying? It's not just the recycled cabin air. When you cross time zones, your body clock gets thrown off and your immune system takes a hit. Dry air weakens your sinuses, and flight stress raises cortisol, which lowers your defenses. But there are ways to protect yourself. Stay hydrated, use a saline spray to keep your nose moist, and get sunlight as soon as you land.
Is that actually a common phenomenon that happens? Because I've never really went on a plane and got off and got sick. I mean, I might have had like, you know what I'm saying, like I had to blow my nose after or something, but never like sick. Let me know if you guys have ever like always get sick after plane rides in the comments.
Thank you all for watching this here video. Please like and subscribe.